Today's lesson is going to be attaching handles. So previously I showed how to pull handles, and I have these two handles right here. They've got their curve is kind of set into them, and they were getting close to perfect. So this is the state that's close to perfect is somewhere in between plastic and leather hard. You need to have enough flexibility left that you can adjust that curve without cracking the handles. So those are the handles. They're sitting under plastic because I don't want them to get any more dry. Here is one mug, and on the wheel over there I have a pitcher. So what I'm going to do is show the finishing steps of trimming and attaching the handles for a pitcher and a mug. So let's get this adjusted. That looks like it's about right. And we'll commence with the trimming. So a pitcher is a symmetrical shape, but it's actually got the spout that you need to be concerned about. The way I handle that on this Giffen grip is I'll put the spout extending out between two of the feet, the compression feet on the grip. And that way when I close this up, I have to turn this back here so you can see, when I close this up, these feet will grip around that spout and it won't cause any problems. Still, you have to sneak up on this very carefully so you don't crush anything. You want to grip it just tight enough so that you know it's in the center and it's going to stay there, but you don't want to crush the lip of the pot. This looks like it's just about there. It takes a little bit of fiddling to kind of sneak up on that. That looks good. Let's see how it spins now. Okay, as I said in the previous trimming video, this tool is designed for trimming pots that are already very symmetrical, and you can see that this one is going to be just fine because it fits that description. So as before, I used the pear corer tool with the long flat side, and the first thing I'm going to do is just take down the bottom to a little bit flatter than what it is. It's got a little bit of a up and down motion going on here. So that's a start. Now I'd like to trim this part. I guess that's, you call that the foot or near the foot. And I've got a little bit of a jiggle there, so I want to check. Yeah, this needs to be tightened up ever so slightly. Again, you don't want to crush it, but you do want to have it gripped tight enough that you can actually trim. Okay, so I'm just going to trim up this foot area where you transition from the foot up to the sidewall. This is an opportunity to correct any kind of, if you're not happy with the shape down there, you can fine tune it just a little bit. But I'm really just kind of creating this this groove that will be a kind of a stop point for any glaze that wants to run. So to do this, it's just a subtle, you're not digging a big trench, you're just making a nice little line. And that way when the glaze runs down the side of this pot, it's got a break point right here, so that if everything is in good balance, the glaze won't run past that. All right, now this one, I like that shape and the finger marks that are on there, that's just fine. So all I'm going to do now is just touch up this very bottom a little bit. There's a tiny little bit of clay sticking out right there. And a lot of times what I like to do is burnish the bottom. In this case, with this porcelain clay, I can burnish it with my fingertips. A lot of times I'll use a fingernail, and that's very helpful. It's kind of like a little rib. I made a little mark on that. But just burnishing this a little bit to make it smooth, and then I can continue. Now I can put my maker's mark in right now, or I could wait until the handle is attached. I'm going to make the assumption that nothing is going to go wrong with attaching the handle. So I'll go ahead and put the maker's mark in. And I'm going to put my stamp on. The serial number stamp. Okay, that's good. Advance the stamp. Now I am going to complete this trim and the mug body, and then we'll do both of the handle attachments together. So we'll just trade this out for the mug body. This one will be much easier to grip. I just use these alignment circles to get it pretty close, and then just kind of sneak up on that. Because this doesn't have a spout sticking out, you can put it anywhere and it should grip pretty well. All right, now this just requires a little bit of touch up as well. Now, one of the things that you can do when you're trimming like this is quite often, even with the best of intentions and the best of effort, this area right here will be thick. And so you can actually cut this down quite a bit. You'd have to have some knowledge of how you threw the thing, but I know that there's going to be quite a bit of clay here, so I can actually be somewhat aggressive in taking some clay off. And if I do, then I want to keep working at making this curve be nice. And so I can see, anytime the curve has little breaks in it, that can be kind of unpleasant. So just work at this just a little bit, and that actually now looks pretty darn good. I can take a lot more off of this if I want, just because I know it's going to be, there will be extra clay, extra structural clay down there. I've made enough of them. I know how much clay there is going to be there. So I'll just continue to take just a little bit more. Just trying to lighten up the weight of the mug. All right, I've taken a good bit of material off. Now I'm just going to have a kind of a careful pass to make sure I like this curve. Yeah, there's a little bit right here that I need to take off. Sometimes just the tiniest little movement will totally change the way it looks. And then the other thing I can do, I talked about this before, is if you don't like the smooth appearance after you make that trim, you can put the finger marks right back in there. And it looks like it was made that way. Now I still want to put my little foot groove, the glaze catcher. So I'll cut that in. No need to go crazy fast. I like to go a little bit slow with my trimming so that I can literally just pick those trimmings off the edge of my tool and keep the workstation clean. looks of that. You can sometimes thump on here, get some idea how thick it is. I think there's quite a bit of thickness here. So I'm going to go ahead and cut a formal foot in this. So to review, I've got my outer glaze catching groove cut. Now I'm going to cut a mark at where I want to declare the width of the foot. So I just cut a little mark there, and that gives me a line that I can start in the center and move out to that line. So we'll do that. A little bit of dry clay on there, but it's not an issue. So notice that I gently hold the pot down onto the wheel head with a light pressure just right in the center there with one fingertip. Now this is a great opportunity to show the burnishing with my fingernail. So I use my two fingertips to kind of polish the edges of my foot, and then my fingernail, the back of my fingernail, burnishes the flat part, and you get quite a wonderful edge that way, or wonderful foot surface. Now I've got very little room for my stamps, but it looks like it's just enough. So put the Maker's Mark stamp in. Make sure, yeah, I did advance the stamp, so that's good. Put the number stamp in, advance that number, and that is fine. So now I have a mug body and a pitcher body, and I have two handles. So I'm going to now show how to attach the handles. So now we'll continue with the handle attachment. So whenever you are attaching any two pieces of clay, it's always important to use scoring and slip. Now I use normally just a fettling knife for scoring, and particularly I find this a great handle attachment tool. You can use specialized scoring tools, and they'll make more marks at once, but you know, I work a little bit slow and patient, and so I find that a fettling knife is terrific for that. The other thing I've noticed in a lot of videos online, people say that they're using slip, but they're really just using water, and they kind of wink wink, nudge or nod, and I don't like that. I think that people can kind of get away with that if they're using relatively soft clay. But here's my advice, especially when you're putting handles on, use slip, don't just use water. So you need slip that matches the clay that you're using. So this is porcelain, these two pieces, and so we have some porcelain slip. And just like with any clay, the slip comes right out of your throwing bucket. So I just mixed it up a little bit. But there we have the slip that we're going to use. And my two handles are right here. So the first thing, let's do the pitcher first. So what I like to do is take a look at this and see if I can figure out where is straight away from my spout. And so I make a mark that's about centered. Okay, and I'll look at that from some different angles. I think I got it just a little bit off. Maybe that second mark is a little bit better centered. Now, I need to figure out how high up I want it to be. And usually somewhere around the top of this shoulder is where you want that to be. So I'm going to go ahead and make some score marks where my initial score is, and just going to kind of complete that score. Okay, so there's my score marks. They're pretty deep. And now I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom of the pot, and I'm going to put some score marks here as well. Okay, so now I have scored top and bottom, and I guess this is upside down, but that's fine. Now I'm going to, I have two handles here, and I've got to pick which one goes with my mug and which one goes with my pitcher. I think, well, they're both fine, and this one looks like it's just a little bit thicker. So what I need to do now is decide where to cut this off. And I'll just take it in my hands like this and take my fettling knife, push down, and I'll do this so that can drop onto my bat. And then I will go ahead and put score marks on here where the attachment is going to be. Now I don't do anything down here yet. The way that is going to go is I'm going to put a little dollop of slip. I'm just going to put the slip right on the end of my handle where the score marks are. Now, don't go overboard with the slip. It really doesn't take very much. Now I have the slip on there, and I'm going to try to find right where this attaches, and I'm just going to hold that on there and kind of turn it back and forth a little bit and push it back and forth and up and down. This movement, these small movements, will actually stick it down. And double check it to make sure that it's where you wanted it to be. This is the only time you can move it just a little bit. And then what I do is I kind of hold it upside down and I try to establish what I want the arc to look like. And so then I'm going to cut this off right about here, because that's where the bottom is going to attach. And I've done this enough times, I know that I'm going to have this right in my fingers and the fettling knife in my hand. So I just go ahead and put the scar marks right there, and then I can put a little dollop of slip right on there, and then just set that on where it's been pre-scored on your pot. And then you can do a little bit of fine tuning of the shape and the angle. And so I've got some score marks that are a little bit off center. You could just fill those in with your fingers, no problem. I don't like to do too much more than this, although up here on this part of the handle, I'll just take my fingertip and press that clay down. It's usually a little bit softer right there because the slip that you use kind of pokes out a little bit and just softens up the clay right on the edge and makes it easy to do this smoothing motion just with your fingertips. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I'm going to double check my angle or the kind of curvature of the handle. Now that looks real nice, and I can hold it up, get some idea what it looks like finished. So it's all finished with the handle attached and my maker's mark and my stamper on the bottom. So that's good to go onto the shelf so that it can dry down. So I'll set that aside, and we'll do exactly the same thing with the mug. Now the mug, it doesn't have a spout side, so it's not so critical. But what I'll do with a mug is see if there's any places that I want to stay away from for where the mug touches my mouth. And in this case, it all looks very uniform, so it's pretty arbitrary where I'm going to attach this handle. So I'm just going to go ahead and make some score marks again, right here at the top of the shoulder of the piece. Sometimes I've noticed people put mug handles way up at the top, and they'll have handles that extend above the top of the mug. I prefer not to do that because so often I want to store my mugs upside down, and I don't want the handle to go further down than this plane. So I will continue with the bottom score marks. Those just go straight below your upper ones, obviously. And I like to put them right down at the bottom. So now same thing with the handle. I'll just take it in my hands and kind of make a decision where to cut it and let that rest of that drop off. That of course will get recycled. Put my score marks in. Now, even though this is still pretty floppy, this porcelain just kind of wants to crack if you look at it wrong. So it's going to be, I need to be a little bit careful when I establish the curvature on this. So again, just a couple of drops of slip. Slip, not water. Use slip for handle attachments. Okay, and then we will press that down on top of where my score marks are. And again, twist it side to side, push it around, up and down, until it's really stuck. And then you can do the same thing with getting the curvature right. Just kind of hold it here, see how it fits the curvature of the pot. Make sure that you've got enough room to put your fingers in there. And that looks real good. I'm going to cut that at a nice sharp angle here so that I'm not just sticking, it's not just a butt joint sticking that piece on, but it's got a little bit of finesse, a little more surface area. Couple of drops of slip. So a little bit of slip goes a long ways, but it's really important to have it. And then I will just kind of pull this up to match my score marks. Check that it's straight. Look at it from the top and the bottom. That looks real nice. Just smooth that a little bit with your fingertip. And then we'll do the same on the top. All right, now that looks pretty good. The last thing I do always with the handle is I look at this curvature and make any small adjustments so that the pot shape and the handle shape are matched. And so I think you might agree that looks like they're pretty well matched now. So that is how I attach handles to a mug and a pitcher. And just a little bit of fine tuning here. So that completes that lesson. Thanks for watching.